Right, we are trying this again. I think we are back live. Yes, we looks like we're back live. Hello, everybody. Sorry about this. I've never ever had this sort of issue before, so not quite sure what was going on. But touch wood, it seems to be sorting itself out. So I think that hopefully we'll be able to continue with the show and get through it. But yeah, so welcome to the show. It is a Thursday night ahead of what is going to be a very busy weekend of rugby. We've got lots planned for you in terms of content, in terms of watch-along stuff like that. The watch-alongs return this weekend. So we will be publishing our official sort of schedule tomorrow morning in terms of the watch-alongs, the reviews, and what you can look forward to this weekend. But it's going to be a very busy weekend. And the big thing for South African fans is the Currie Cup starts this weekend. And we'll look at a few of the teams. I think it's the Sharks, Griquas, and the Bulls have confirmed their teams for this weekend. Nothing yet from the Pumas and stuff like that. So in terms of previews, we're going to have previews going wild tomorrow, because we're going to have a preview up for the Rainbow Cup final and the 3 Currie Cup games. So there'll be 4 previews out tomorrow as well. We are going to be live for the SA Under 20 game, which will be a lot of fun. It's going to be Sean Goosen, who is going to be doing it tomorrow. His first watch along. So if you are available tomorrow, 3 o'clock South African time, then please do come and hang out, show him some support. It's the first time he's ever going to be doing it, so it should be quite exciting. But also, I mean, it's why I sort of started this channel, and the whole point of this channel was to give everybody a voice and to be the voice of the fans. So the fact that we can get somebody else to come do a watch along is really exciting. I think that's all what this is about. It's about building a community of rugby fans and people who love rugby, and a place where we can all kind of meet. Not just rugby, just sport in general, but a place where we can all meet and just talk about the game that we like so much. And so yeah, so that's what's going to happen tomorrow. We won't be live, unfortunately, for the Lions versus Pumas game. We will, however, have a review up after that game. I'll make sure that there is a review. I'm not quite sure who will do it, but we'll definitely have a review. And then we're going to be live for 3 matches in a row on Saturday, with the Griquas taking on the Sharks, the Western Province taking on a Bulls club side, basically, and then obviously the Rainbow Cup final, which is very, very exciting. But yeah, so before we get stuck into some new stuff, please do smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are closing in on 1,700 subscribers, so please do subscribe if you haven't already. But we're going to start with a bit of transfer news before we get into sort of the Currie Cup and stuff like that. And for Lions fans, Lions have confirmed that 2 players are currently on or out on loan at other clubs. And the Lions confirmed today that both Vian Herbst, who we've seen at the Sharks, wasn't quite sure what the situation was in terms of it was a loan deal, it was a permanent deal, or what the story was, but they have confirmed that Vian Herbst is on loan to the South Sea Sharks at the moment, and he will be on there for the Currie Cup, as well as Hachiva Diamani, who has joined the Western Province for the duration of the Currie Cup. And I think that from a Lions fan's perspective, I think the Diamani one, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to him. It's just been a bit of a weird career he's had for the Lions, because I mean, he came in with such high expectations, a lot of hopes and stuff like that, and we all thought that we had a really special player. And yet there have been so many players who have leapfrogged him. And look, he's still very young. I mean, he's 23 years old at the moment, 2024 in September. But, when you think of Frankie Horn, MJ Pulser, Vincent Tuka, these are all players who've come in and overtaken Diamani, who burst onto the scene, got an unbelievable turn of pace. Very big, very physical, but hasn't quite made it yet. It talks about maybe shifting him to center. That's what Suez de Brain wanted to do. But whatever the case is, he hasn't managed to sort of get game time. He's had quite a few injuries, which hasn't helped. But even since sort of the end of lockdown and stuff like that, he's really struggled to find game time in this Lions side. So I think a loan move for him is very good, especially going to the Western Province, who are losing a lot of loose forwards at the moment. Obviously, no Peace to Toy. They've yet to name their side. It'll be named tomorrow. I think it comes out at about 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I think the press conference is at 11. So I think that's a very good move from Diamani. And I think from a Lions perspective, I'm interested to see what they want out of this loan. Because look, he's out of contract at the end of the year. And I don't think he has a career at the Lions. I think this is a bit of a loan of putting him in the shop window and for other sides to then potentially come in. Apparently he's got the Western Province / Stormers have been very open about the fact that they want to bring him in permanently. Apparently he also has options in France as well as Australia. Apparently a side in Australia are quite keen on him. So interesting to see what happens to him there, because he just hasn't quite lived up to expectation. Vian Herbst, we didn't really see much of him from the Lions, so I'm not too worried about that itself. But in terms of tomorrow night and what we can expect from tomorrow night, so we'll start there. And both sides have named their teams, both the Pumas as well as the Lions, and quite a few changes in the Lions side. It's a very good Puma side. We've seen this Puma side push quite a few teams. So we're looking at their side. Tomorrow it's going to be Corne Fourie, Simon Vestrot, Monica Tsier, Darren Landsberg, Pediats of Inferior will captain the side as usual. Francois Clenons, Pumzela Makondwana, Willie Engelbrecht is back at the Pumas. Obviously, his loan spell was only for the Rainbow Cup, so he's back at the Pumas. Then it's Christopher September, Eddie Fischer, Etienne Talliard, Ali Imgajima, Eric Cornier, Tapiro Mafura, and Devin Williams. So it's a pretty full-strength Puma side. Even on the bench, the likes of Daniel Martins, Ginter Smuts, Matt Moore. That's quite an interesting move to see that Matt Moore there. I'm not quite sure what the situation is with him and whether he's there on loan from the Western Province or whether he's signed permanently. But it'll be interesting to see what that story is, and I think we'll try and get confirmation in the press conference because I haven't seen anything official about him having moved there. For the Lions, a couple of changes. Obviously, the Lions have lost Jordan Hendricks to the S Under-20s, and then they've lost Wandisile Similani to the Box. And there were quite a few injuries. But the good news for the Lions, that Vincent Tutuka is back. But what's quite interesting, and not only are the Lions, are the captains for the Currie Cup. So Frankie Horn has been named as the captain for tomorrow's side. There's no Birger Odendaal, and Dan Creel is playing, and yet Frankie Horn is still retained the captaincy. So it looks like quite a few teams are using the Currie Cup to try and blood a potential future captain. So Frankie Horn is back from injury, and he will captain the side. Vincent Tutuka is back tomorrow. Sibasiso Sangweni, somebody's getting a chance. Jumbo Lengo's back on the side. Manuel Russ is back on the side. So quite a few changes. Nathan Macbeth is starting, for example. It's definitely not the full strength Lions side. And I think it's the Currie Cup's becoming quite a bit of a strange competition because it's our premier tournament in South Africa. It's the oldest rugby competition in the world. But at the moment, it's kind of becoming a bit of a fringe and young players tournament. It's becoming a tournament where you rest players and you give other players a go and you bring your youngsters through. And that's not really what it's supposed to be, is it? It's supposed to be our premier tournament, like the big rivalries, the age-old rivalries over 100 years of competition. So I think that it's a tournament that needs a big relook because we need to find a way of ensuring that they can still be a competitive competition and that we can make sure that the best players are playing in the Currie Cup. We want to be seeing Sia Khaleesi, Dwayne Vermeulen, Lukanya we want to see them playing Currie Cup action. They would have grown up being told, the Currie Cup's this, the Currie Cup's that. At the moment, it's kind of like the secondary competition that nobody really cares about, which is quite frustrating. So, how SA Rugby get that right, I think it's all about scheduling, and they kind of need to be a bit inventive and figure out how we're going to schedule the Currie Cup so we can ensure that the best players are available for their teams. But staying on the captaincy issue, in terms of the reason I mentioned the fact that it's interesting that the Sharks gone with a young captain is that the Lions, is that the Sharks have followed suit. Former SA Under-20 captain Pepsi Buthelezi will lead the Sharks in the Currie Cup campaign. This despite the fact that Jeremy Ward will be starting this weekend. And as far as I can understand, Henko Venter is also in and around the group. So very interested to see the fact that they've given Pepsi Buthelezi the captaincy for this tournament. I think he's a future SA captain. I think he's a brilliant player. Very nice youngster. He's built up quite a bit. I was worried about his size and his physicality, when he first sort of came through. But he's built up quite nicely. Got a really good skill set on him. A very measured head. I think he's going to be a future star. Quite interesting. The Sharks have also arrested Curran Bosch, which means Boeta Chamberlain is going to get a chance to run out. So a couple of changes for the Sharks. Well, we'll obviously go through these teams with a bit more sort of detail and stuff like that in our official previews. It'll all be out tomorrow. We're going to put up the Lions versus the Pumas one out nice and early. We're then going to have the Sharks versus Griquas one out, and then we'll finish with the Western Province versus Bulls, which should be out about Hoppers 1, 2 o'clock, because we all need to be ready to go live at 3 for the SA Under-20s. They're playing against Uruguay tomorrow. The first time those SA Under-20s have been in action in about 2 years now, actually. So it should be quite exciting for them. Again, it'll be interesting to see how they play, given the fact that they've put in a lot of fringe players because they're back in action. I think it's on Monday or Tuesday. And so a lot of the big stars of that SA Under-20s are not playing tomorrow, like something like Jordan Hendricks, who we've all seen in the Rainbow Cup. He's not playing for the SA Under-20s tomorrow. The view is that he'll play next week. Similarly, even the Currie Cup sides, they're playing midweek rugby. They're playing, Friday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday. So they also have to be quite careful with the way that they rest players and allow players to get a bit of rotation. So that's why I think, for the Lions, we haven't seen Berger Oendal, and we haven't seen players like Courtnall Skosan and stuff like that. But I think those players will come in next week in the midweek game. And in terms of the Bulls side, because it's a very, very interesting Bulls side. Obviously, the Bulls are currently sitting in Italy, the main Bulls side, and that's without the six. I think it's about 6 players who are currently with the Springboks, as well as or was it 4 players? Van Staden, it's Vermeulen who's injured. It's Peter Bank Trevor, and it is who's the last Bulls player? Who am I missing here? It'll come to me. So the Bulls missing a couple of players from injury and stuff like that, and Morris Dane. But the bulk of the Bulls squad is currently sitting in Italy as they've prepared to face Benetton in the final Rainbow Cup, which between that and injuries means that there was pretty much no players remaining back in South Africa, and so as a result, Pine Pienaar has had to pick a largely club side. I'm trying to find the announcement here. But I think it's officially 9 club players will feature for the Bulls on Saturday. 9 players that don't have a contract with the Bulls or have never played with the Bulls and stuff like that. I think there's 22 debutants in the 24 players who have been named. The big names of players who have played are Sampiero Mantanzima, known as the Beast. He will play. We've seen Richard Creel as well in that Cheetahs Invitational game, the brother of David Creel, so he's starting at full back. Sangor Kanglasha is going to be the captain on the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bulls go. And also a name that people might recognize is Matleli Dlamini with the giraffe. That was the prop that the Bulls picked up from the club scene down in Natal. So lots of club players involved in the clash. So if you look at it, so 28 have travelled to Italy to play in the Rainbow Cup final. A further 4 with the Springboks and 4 out due to injuries, and 2 are with the Blitzboks. Whilst 6 players have also been called up for the junior box. So this is what I'm saying. The Bulls are missing about 40 players, across the various sort of different things. So, officially 44 players can't be considered who are technically under contract with the Bulls. So, this is a Bulls C-D-E team. But this is the way the cookie crumbles, and I think it'll be quite interesting to see how the Western Province decide to line up. Do they go and sit there saying, this is a chance to get all 5 points, they play a reasonably strong style, or do they say, if there's ever a time to give these fringe players an opportunity, it's against this Bulls side, missing so many players. So it's quite an interesting sort of dynamic for the Western Province. Let me know what you would do if you were in the coach staff. Would you field a full strength side of the Western Province? Only a full strength, but I'm saying, would you field quite a strong side? Or would you sit there saying, players like, I don't know, Sazi Sunday's been on the bench quite a few times for Province, hasn't really gone to the field. Who else? Maybe Abner van Reenen's it's a good match for him to get a bit of confidence. So do you go those sort of players and allow these sort of fringe players an opportunity now, whereas that you've got bigger games up ahead, or do you still play a relatively strong team and try and ensure that you can go to Loftus and get 5 points? Because 5 points in the first weekend of Currie Cup, that's a huge start to the Currie Cup. The first division is also in action this weekend. I'll try and find the fixtures. There was so much going out today. So the first division fixtures are Eagles versus Falca. That's on Friday. That's tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Bulldogs versus the Downtouch Griffins. That is Saturday at 2 o'clock in East London. And the EP Elephants are playing against the Leopards in Gqeberha at the Isaac Wilson Stadium. That's also on Saturday. That'll be at 3 o'clock. So first division also in action tomorrow. We won't really get to cover that. I don't think they're even being shown. So even if you want to, we can't really watch those games. But it's nice to have those. Nice to see those teams are playing against. When was the last time you heard of the Falca playing, the Eagles playing, the Leopards, the Downtouch Griffins? These people probably haven't played rugby in about 18 to almost 2 years. They didn't get to play the first division last year, so it'll be really good for those players to get back onto the field. And you've got to, out of those sides, in theory, you think of the Eastern Province as the time that's the side that used to impress. Under Peter de Vries, apparently lost a couple of players, but they in theory should be the side that should be starting to push. And I think there's so many talented players in that Eastern Cape. We've just seen the Varsity Shield, Varsity Cup. There are players in that Walter Sulu side that could be playing for the Kings. There are players in the NMU Madibas that could be playing in that EP side. So there's definitely a lot of talent there. It's whether they can harness it and sort of be able to shape these players into players who are good enough to play at this level. But yeah, in terms of the Curry Cup, obviously we know how all the log works. It's a bonus point for scoring 4 more tries, 4 points for a victory, 2 points for a draw, nothing for a loss. You get a bonus point for coming within 7. So there's absolutely nothing complicated about the Curry Cup whatsoever. Very, very easy format to follow. So that's pretty much the Curry Cup. In terms of the Springboks, we had another media opportunity today, and we had an opportunity to speak to Zwandile Stick as well as Lakanya and Roscoe Speckman. So the interview, well, the press conference segment with Zwandile Stick is currently on the channel live. We're going to be putting up the Lakanya one as well after this. That'll go live as well. But Zwandile Stick, I mean, he's a very, very cool guy to be part of the press conference. He's very frank. And he's very honest, you know, and he said, and if you've seen the press conference, he said, we are very aware of the fact that we haven't played in a game since the Curry Cup. He said, but that can't be an excuse. He said, we can't sit here and complain about the fact that, you know, as the Springboks, we haven't had game time, we haven't had the opportunity to play rugby and stuff like that. They said, nobody wants to hear our excuses, nobody's going to accept our excuses. When we run out against Georgia, when we run out against the British and Irish Lions, we have to be our very best, and there's no excuse not to be. So he was quite frank about that. You know, he said that they are very aware of the fact that people are expecting them to be off the pace, but they cannot afford to be off the pace. He had some really good things to say, and I think that, you know, it's worth going and checking out that conference. He's a very honest person. He's somebody who came under quite a lot of scrutiny, and to be very honest, when he was appointed, because most of his coaching sort of credentials were in the Eastern Cape. With the EP under 21s, he's assistant coach at the EP Rugby itself. He's got a sevens background. So we kind of went from being sevens background, part of the EP sides who weren't doing particularly well, although those N21s are pretty good, to suddenly being the Springbok assistant coach. And I think he's under quite a lot of pressure to prove himself. A lot of people sort of saying that maybe it's political view and stuff like that, but he has done a lot of good things with that Springbok backline. So he's definitely proven his credentials. You've got Deon Davids, who's now part of the setup. He's taking over from the forwards from Matt Proudfoot, so he's going to be under a bit of pressure to see if those forwards can continue being as dominant as they are. So a couple of changes in that box coaching setup, which, you know, we'll have to wait and see what the effects are. I mean, it's such an amazing pack, for example, to work with. I think Deon Davids will do very well with that pack. I mean, he was getting that EP side to play at a higher level of rugby than I think a lot of us expected them to back when he was head coach. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what he can bring to the box themselves. In terms of Lakanya I had to say quite a few questions asked about Wandisile Simelane, about JC Creel being back in the mix, and he was just talking about that. You know, it's all about, you know, being for the team and stuff like that. It's a very unselfish environment within the Springboks. You know, it's all about bringing the new players in, making sure they're ready. You know, and he said that basically his job between him and JC Creel and stuff like that is to make sure that the senior players make the junior players feel very welcome and very established, so that when they get called upon, they are ready. Something Zwandile Stick was also very adamant about. He said that the point of these sort of having such a big squad, you know, we need to make Aphelele Fassi ready to play for the Springboks. We need to make Yapenk ready to play for the Springboks. He said we cannot allow us to get to, you know, Vililu retiring and then suddenly having to bring in Aphelele Fassi for his debut. He said there has to be a succession plan at all times, which is right. I think that's been a bit of an issue with the Springboks, is that in the past we've had really good sides and there wasn't enough players, there wasn't much of a succession plan, there wasn't a lot of sort of forward thinking, and suddenly we went from having a very strong group to being quite a weak group and having to rebuild, to having a decent strong group and then a weak group. So now I think there's far more sort of long-term vision, and that's why you've got players in the squad like Sanele Nahamba, Wandisile Simelane, Aphelele Fassi, you know, to name a few. Fez and Barter being part of the lineman camps. You know, it's all about getting these players in the system so that they are ready. If they get called up, you remember we've got a long test window, hey? We start playing now on the 3rd of July, and we are playing, I mean, it's like, I think it's like every weekend, bar about 6 or 7 weekends until the end of like November. The amount of test rugby the Boks are going to play is absolutely insane. I don't even think there's a break between the Lions Tour and the Argentina games and the Rugby Championship. And then we go over to play 2 tests in New Zealand and 2 tests in Australia. So it's going to be a really, really grueling test calendar. And so I think there's a lot of space for the players like Wandisile Simelane to get a debut. I think Aphelele Fassi could very well get a debut. You know, Sanele Nahamba, you know, maybe he does also get a debut. But there's certainly a lot of opportunity for these players to play. And it's going to have to be a lot of good management. I mean, do the Springboks do a similar thing to what they did a couple of years ago, where they kept a pretty weak side here in South Africa, and they sent their best side over to New Zealand to go and give them a week of full training and stuff like that? So do they do a similar thing? Do they sit there and say, right, we've had the Lions series, we've got 2 games against Argentina now. Let's keep some of these players and send the bulk of our main squad. Do we send them over to Australia, to New Zealand, and let them go and start training, let them go and prepare, whilst these other players sort of play Argentina? These are some big calls to make. And then obviously you've got the outgoing tour, and I really enjoy outgoing tours. So I think it's a nice opportunity for us to try and blood a few players and bring a couple of players in. Unfortunately, there's no Barbarians game. I always love a Barbarians game because that's always a perfect game to play players you haven't played, and the game which is always very attacking nature and very open, and full of the best players in the world. It's the perfect sort of place for certain players to make debuts and stuff like that, and make a bit of an impact. I remember Ryan van Rensburg scoring a try against the Barbarians when he had that opportunity in the Reebok jersey. He hasn't had an opportunity since. So it's a bit bleak that we're not going to have a Barbarians game. Good evening, Kwasi. So any injury news? So Stick said that he can't give any updates apart from the doctor. He said that Damien Delendi and Arceus Neyman are still in Ireland. They're still waiting to travel. They still haven't been cleared to travel and stuff like that. Didn't say anything about the extent of their injuries. Same thing as Lewis and stuff like that. And Dwayne, they said that they've got to be very careful. They said more than so than just the injury, the fact that you got to look at his age, and you see that Dwayne's not young anymore, so they need to make sure that even if it's all going well, that they can't rush him back and risk further injury. So there wasn't really any sort of injury updates. No new injured players, for example, which is quite good news, but nothing much on the injury front in terms of the players who are carrying injuries and stuff like that. And then Roscoe Speckman was also part of the press conference, and I can't really say too much about what he's got to say because it's all embargoed for tomorrow. But really, really cool to have a chat with him. Roscoe Speckman was the first person I ever interviewed when I was still a student in Download Roads. I interviewed Roscoe Speckman in Grahamstown, and that was in 2016. And we spoke about the fact that he just had a breakthrough season for the Blitzbox, and that he, what was his plan for the future. And back then he was saying, I'm not quite sure. I'm thinking of maybe going to the Sevens. I'm currently only contracted to the Blitzbox. I might go to Sevens. I might play Super Rugby. I'm not quite sure what his plan is. 5 years later, I was talking to him in the Springbok press conference. I reminded him of the conversation, and he had a bit of a chance to look back at where things went right for him. The role his father played, the role that, how he left the Bulls and wasn't really happy with that, but he had nice time for some introspection. So it's actually some really, really good stuff. If there's one of the 3 parts of the press conference, I really do implore you, go watch that Roscoe Speckman segment, because he says a lot of really interesting things and very, very humble and very excited. But yeah, Kwasi, well, thank you so much for the donation. Really, really appreciate that. It's all going towards a new chair at the moment, so thank you for hanging out and for the donation. I really do appreciate it. If you guys are new here, you can also join the Forever Sports Club. It's next to the subscribe button there as well. What we're going to be doing as we get towards the Lions tour, all the press conferences and stuff like that, we're going to be releasing early to the members club and then to the rest of you guys and stuff like that. Some more behind the scenes and content as well. So if you want to get as much possible rugby content as you can, you can become part of the members club. You get a little badge next to your name, which is quite cool. But don't worry, all our content and stuff like that will obviously still be available as per normal throughout the tour. I mean, I'll tell you what, I lie in bed at night and I have sleepless nights just because of how excited I am for all the stuff that we've got planned for this Lions tour. We're going to be having a bit of an announcement video on Monday. Hopefully we can come out. The Lions tour begins next week Saturday. That's the first gaming with the Lions against Japan, and after that it's going to be them coming to South Africa, and we're going to have to gear ourselves up for what's going to be a pretty incredible few weeks. And just when we were looking at the stuff we were doing, it's just so frustrating that we're not going to be able to do it in person. I mean, we had so many plans of just taking cameras to the game and being able to interact with people and go and chat to people at the games. We've all seen it overseas. Go and get real fan cams, people that can comment and tell you what they're doing with the game. But we're going to be doing as part of the sort of build, we're going to be doing a bit of a platform where people can submit all, you can submit clips and stuff like that. And we want to start doing more sort of fan submitted content and stuff like that. So yeah, stick around so that you can be part of that. Kelly Coonan, good evening, says looking forward as to how this all turns out. They better hope the UFC don't sue them for copyright. Yeah, look, it's gonna be interesting couple of weeks. Yeah, that's just it. I just don't quite know what to expect with this whole tour, with what's gonna happen. I don't actually know what's happening with broadcasting, for example, overseas and stuff like that. So I think maybe we'll actually look at doing a video for that, try to tell everybody how they can watch the games and possible ways that they can sort of get around them, because it's going to be a very, very eagerly anticipated tour, and given the fact that nobody can go into stadium and stuff like that, it also makes pirating harder, because nobody can be sitting there filming clips in the stadium and stuff like that, which a lot of people used to do actually back in the day, which was quite interesting. But yeah, so that's the sort of Springbok update. Yeah, as I said, go and check out that Roscoe Speckman interview, because he had some really cool stuff. Sean O'Farrell saying I wouldn't be surprised if a Club Rugby World Cup happens after the SA sides join Champions Cup. It said a Club Rugby World Cup might happen in 2024. I quite like the idea, to be honest. I think it could be really, really cool. I mean, you think of sort of the clubs in Argentina, they must be more than just obviously the Jaguars and stuff like that. I think a Club World Cup would be quite something, especially if we can do it in an allocated window where they've all got their best players, and you say, right, we're gonna have a 6-week tournament, pools, literally like the World Cup, but just for clubs. I think that could be a lot of fun. Be interesting to see how many teams would be allowed from every nation. There's going to be sort of 2 teams from all the different leagues. So the logistics of it must probably be a bit of a nightmare, but the concept would be really cool. Quite see in the UK they're showing on Sky Sports. Yeah, I think I'll do a video. I'll do a very short video, and we'll just talk about. I'll do some research and find out where everybody can watch it and stuff like that, and what the price on stuff like that. But obviously, if you can't watch it, or even if you do watch it, chuck it on and come hang out. We've got a live watch along for every single Lions game. We will be live for every single Lions game, so don't worry. We will have you covered. If you can't watch it, but if you can watch it, come hang out anyway. Kanaku says, Munster versus Stormers. My dream match is finally happening. Can't wait. Part of my lack of interest in the Lions tour. Right, I'm not really pushed about it so far. Look, I think that'll build, to be honest. I think at the moment, on the back of the United Rugby Championship news on Monday, I'm also a bit like that. I'm also very much like, can we just get into this? Can the Lions go and play Leinster? Can we go and play overseas? I want to be able to pick up and see what the Lions are doing in, Glasgow, which is going to be really cool. But I think the Lions hype will start building probably next week when they're out against Japan, I suppose. We also, there are tickets for the game next week, so it should be in front of a crowd, which I'll be very jealous of. But I think that's when the Lions tour will start being quite real. Must admit, they've got a terrible TikTok channel that we've been watching a little bit, trying to see a couple of sneak peeks into the tour, into the camp. Doesn't seem like too much excitement's happening. But I think when they're down in South Africa and playing against the Sharks, or no, the Lions got the first game, then it all starts becoming quite real. So really looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. In terms of other rugby news, there's not much that's happened really this week. It's obviously you've got a lot of rugby this weekend. The main fixture is the Bulls versus Benetton. As Sean O'Farrell says, you'll get a teaser of the URC on Saturday with Benetton versus Bulls. I can't wait for that match. I'm so excited to see how Benetton play. I was watching clips and stuff like that. They look like a side with quite a decent skill set. Some very good handling from what I was watching. You're not afraid to throw the ball around, which is going to be quite a contrast to the Bulls, who are very direct, very powerful, very much like to bully the sides. And it's a bit like the Springboks, where you kind of know what you're going to get with the Bulls, but can you match them? Can you go toe to toe? Can you keep them out? Can you penetrate that defense? And obviously, you're not going to be a full strength Bulls side. So players like Chris Smith, for example, is going to have to try and do a job at fly half. He hasn't had a lot of game time. How's he going to go this weekend? Marcel Coetzee is going to be a massive player for the Bulls. We've seen he's been very good the last 2 weeks, but once again, he's going to have to put in a big shift. No team announcement from the Bulls. It's a bit weird because they usually announce their team on the Thursday. So this is what I'm saying. Tomorrow is going to be very hectic preview-wise. So we're going to have 4 previews up, hopefully 4 previews up before the kick of the SAM20 game, which is scheduled for 3 o'clock. So make sure you come and hang out with us. As I said, it won't be me tomorrow doing the watch log. I'll be with you all Saturday though. So go tomorrow and get your beers. Put them on ice. I've got mine. I've not quite put on ice yet, but I've definitely stocked up this weekend, so it should be a lot of fun. Make sure you do the same. But it's going to be an interesting weekend. As I said, I'm keen to see Benton. I'm very keen to see Greek was back on the field. I'm keen to see Pumas back on the field. Some of these players we don't get to see week in, week out. I get an opportunity. I think that it's a nice opportunity for the Currie Cup for some of these the URC clubs, I suppose I should say, to now go and do a bit of scouting. They have to put together a side that can compete against the best in Ireland, Scotland, Italy, and Wales. So during this Currie Cup, they're definitely going to have their eye out on a few players. So as a Pumas or a Greek was player, you're going to be sitting there saying, listen, if I play really well here, I could find myself on a plane to Ireland in September or October. So there's definitely a lot to play for in the Currie Cup, more than just the Currie Cup itself. And hopefully that comes across with some of the big performances. Canacuna said that Benetton play to their best. They might just surprise us. The odds are against them, but they should believe in themselves. You know what? They've got home ground advantage. I'm not entirely sure there's going to be a crowd. I must actually check that. There were rumors that there was going to potentially be a crowd, so I'm not sure there's going to be a crowd. If you do know, let me know. But as Benetton, what have you got to lose? You're going to run into the field and say, right, we have been told that we're going to lose this game. We have been told this is the best that South Africa can produce. Yes, there's quite a lot of players missing, but this is the team to beat. So what have they got to lose by going out, throwing the ball around, and saying, you know what, let's just have a go. It's final rugby. It's playoff rugby. It's one thing doing these things, on a week in, week out basis when you're playing for points. It's another where one bad performance and you lose the cup. So playoff rugby does strange thing to a lot of people. Jason Best says, what about the Challenge Cup? I'm not sure what you mean about it. Just in terms of, what's the reference to the Challenge Cup? Sean O'Farrell says, plus can the Bulls deal with the referee in the Rainbow Cup final? The way the refs do it in the North is different. Yeah, I'm quite interested to see how they referee the scrums, because that's been quite a marked difference when I was watching Six Nations and a little bit of the Rainbow Cup North. The way that they go with the scrums is quite different. So it'd be a nice sort of teaser, I suppose, a bit of a taste of what we can expect towards the end of the year in terms of how they officiate the scrums, what sort of the differences on stuff like that. Just I was hoping it would be Leinster or Munster. Yeah, I think a lot of people were, but credit to Benton, they played well, and obviously they had a bit of an easier run. But I also think that, let's be honest, as a rugby fan, you're going to turn on your TV and you're going to know a lot of those Munster players. You would have known a lot of those Leinster players. But as a South African fan, I'm going to turn on and watch Benton. And obviously I watched a bit of Six Nations, so I know some of those players, but I'm looking forward to seeing players I've never seen before play some rugby, and a team and a pattern that I've never really seen before. So I think it'll be quite nice to see something a bit different. And I think given the lack of sort of this inter-hemisphere rugby we've seen, I think a lot more people will be interested in the game than they would have been if it was the same two play and we'd seen a couple of these games before. But hopefully they put on a really good spectacle. The head coach of Benton will also help out the Italian national team. Yeah, quite sad that Franco Smith got the sack, to be honest. I thought he had quite an interesting idea in that he was very mindful of how much they've got to go to become a decent side, Italy. I think that he had a very good idea in terms of saying, I've got some really good youngsters, I'm going to blood them, and I'm going to play them, and they're not going to be good now, and Italy's not going to be competitive now, but I want to give these players the opportunity to grow. And he probably wasn't even looking for next year's World Cup. He's probably thinking 2027. Because 2027, something like Paulo Galbrizzi could have 8 years of Test rugby under his belt. So maybe sort of build up towards there and then say to Italy, right, go and surprise us. Cancun saying another big aspect of this UFC, which is important, is that both Ireland and the Springboks are against each other in World Cup 2023. Very good point. The more the clubs play each other, the closer this game ought to be. Yeah, it's been interesting pools in the 2023 one. I'm very keen to play Ireland in the group stage. I think it's only happened like twice, so we've actually played Ireland in the World Cup. It's something really stupid. How much do you rate David Creel? I think there's a lot to be seen about David Creel. I don't think we've seen the best of him, to be honest. I think he's been pretty solid. I was going through the team of the tournament. A couple of people disagree with my picks, but if you want to go check it out on the channel. But, looking at sort of the full backs, and I don't think that David Creel's really knocked the doors down. He's very young. He is very young. I don't even think he's 22 yet. So he's got a lot of time to develop. He's 22. Sorry, he turned 22 this year. But I haven't been blown away by him. I think he's very solid. Looks a little bit lightweight in my opinion. But I think he's quite tall and lanky, which is probably why he looks a bit lightweight. I mean, he's like 1.95. So that's probably why he looks a bit skinny. But yeah, I think that he's got a lot of talent, but I haven't really been blown away yet by what I've seen. Matthew Dixon said, well, SA teams also qualify for the Challenge Cup depending on where they finish in the league. Yeah, it does sound like it. It sounds like both the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup, there should be room in both of them. It all comes down to whether we can negotiate places in the cup and what the story will be with that. So it all sounds very promising. It sounds like a couple of federations need to sign off on it. Dot the I's and cross the T's. But it sounds like in 2022, 2023, the SA sides will be in the Challenge Cup and the Champions Cup, and we will be playing against a lot of those sides, which will also be really cool. I think that's sort of the whole reason. It's a couple of South African fans are saying that they're not sure we should be going to Europe and that they would rather be in the Super Rugby. I completely disagree. I was so over Super Rugby by the end of it. I think it comes down to, it was exciting watching us against the 4 New Zealand teams, maybe 3 New Zealand teams. Crusaders always a good watch, stuff like that. But I didn't really get excited for watching the Lions versus the Reds, if I'm honest. Lions versus Waratahs, I didn't sit there thinking, I can't wait. Which might be the case with Lions versus Benetton, but you know what? I think it's all about the Champions Cup, isn't it? And it's about the Challenge Cup. It's about watching the Bulls play against Montpellier. Obviously we've got the Munster-Leinster game, stuff like that, which would be really big. Even Ulster stuff like that. But, that's kind of the same as Super Rugby. I think it's when we get to the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup that it becomes really exciting. That we can be playing Munster 1 week, Montpellier, and then, Benetton, for example, at the moment, and then, Toulouse, or playing against like Sale Sharks. You could have Sale Sharks versus the Sharks in the Challenge Cup or in the Champions Cup. I think that's when we will see the benefit. I think that's when we're going to see how much of a good move it was to go north. Obviously, I'm hoping that we also see a big investment in the country so we can start putting some money in, pumping some money into our structures so we can sort that aspect of South African rugby out. I think there's far more pros than cons for us moving north. So I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, just in wrapping up, Troy Faust is a funny match. Will be the Sale Sharks versus Sharks. It's going to be a blooming nightmare for the live watch along, just like the Lions versus the Lions in a couple of weeks' time. Jason Vester says, I feel Madosh Tamwe should have been a good player. I think him and Edwin van der Merwe have made big strides. I think that I'll be interested to see how they go in the Currie Cup. Because I think that those two players are players who probably peaked a little bit late to get into the box squad. I think, something like Roscoe Speckman's been doing this now for a while. Yeah, Penkley was obviously on the radar last year when he was picked up for that Springbok Gold versus Green game. But Madosh Tamwe and Edwin van der Merwe, both very young players. Madosh Tamwe, proper out-and-out finisher. Edwin van der Merwe, someone's got that X factor. So I think their time will come. As I said, it's a very long test window. Injuries will come. Rotation will have to come. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity. But I think I'm going to call it there. Apologies for the technical difficulties at the beginning. We'll try and make sure that doesn't happen this weekend. But yeah, I hope everybody's had a fantastic week. I hope everybody is really ready for this weekend because, as I said, we've got 4 watch-alongs lined up. Lots of rugby to watch. Lots of beer to drink. Lots of time to chill. So just an ending off, Matthew Dixon said, I would have liked 8 SA teams play internationally: Bulls, Sharks, Lions, Stormers in Europe, and Griquas, Pumas, Cheetahs, and Kings in Super Rugby and Super 12 format. Yeah, I think time issues there, and I mean the money just isn't there. I think for the Griquas and the Pumas and stuff like that. I mean these guys can barely afford to pay players and get graphic design artists and stuff like that. So I don't think they would have had the money for Super Rugby. There were kind of talks about maybe potentially those players going to, like your sort of European second league, your Spains and stuff like that. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure that SA Rugby's got a good plan for those ones. But yeah, thank you very much. Please do smash a like, subscribe to the channel, become part of the members club if you would like to, and I'll see you guys over the weekend. Thank you very much, and chat to you soon.